Okay, I just continue. I'm summarizing all of this. Taking refuge, triggered by fear, is like I don't know, if there is a hierarchy, let's say, this is just for the sake of our communication. If there is a hierarchy about the three refuge taken because of fear, refuge taken due to the admiration to the enlightenment, or refuge taken because of the compassion. Since this is the Mahayana Shastra, obviously the highest ranking refuge is you take a refuge because you have a compassion to the sentient beings. This is important for us to know, especially if you are a Mahayana practitioner. You are not supposed to even think about your enlightenment. Your enlightenment is the least important. Who cares whether you are liberated or not? I can be doomed forever. In fact, they even pray, may I be doomed until all sentient beings are enlightened. You understand? What does all this tell us? Just now, the brief information I gave you, it tells us a lot of things actually. It tells us that, are we even doing the first, do we even have the kindergarten level of fear? Probably we do at times, once in a blue moon. But most of us, we may only have the kindergarten level of refuge. Fear. So our refuge is only the kindergarten level of refuge. That level of refuge we are taking. Maybe some of us, at times, once maybe 12 years, we have the second kind of fear to the cause of the suffering. Of course, we are afraid of suffering. That, any beings, nobody wishes to be in pain, right? But cause of the suffering, are we really afraid of the cause of the suffering? This is something to think about. But taking refuge out of compassion, because of the compassion, this is a really grand one. Because so what you know, how much you practice, how much you gain, how much you purify your defilements, how much you gain the knowledge of the Dharma, how much you gain the quality of love and compassion, the enlightened qualities. All these are not for yourself. None of this is to adorn or ornament yourself. Because the Mahayana's cause of the refuge is mainly because of the compassion. And here maybe we talk a little bit about, briefly about compassion. Again, the word compassion is maybe not the right word, but this is the language this is the term that we have adopted for a long time. because one has to really think about this carefully, because the English is becoming a very domineering language, especially in this part of in places like here, Singapore, India. We have to really, especially if you are genuinely wants to understand the wisdom of Asia, wisdom of India, wisdom of Buddha Dharma, we have to pay some attention to also the language. Because many of the language, especially the spiritual oriented language, such as word compassion, forgiveness, that are found in English are deeply rooted to Abrahamic culture. So things like good, things like bad, when we talk about morality. So we may be, okay, a Singaporean Buddhist may be using the word, English word, good. It's a good thing to do, loosely when they use this language. You have to be careful here, because maybe that word good, which you have learned in the English school in Singapore, is deeply rooted to some Abrahamic culture. You have to pay attention to this. Does it really matter? Oh yes, it does. It does really matter quite a big time, actually. Why? Because in the Abrahamic culture, you are by nature, I don't know so much, but you need forgiveness. You are a sinner, and God is here to forgive you. You better behave, then the God will forgive you. So that is sort of one of the fundamental sort of thing, isn't it? So not to oppose the God, to not to oppose according to his law, whatever. These are the things called good. Not in Buddhism. Buddhism, fundamentally, you are good. You are not a sinner. You are actually perfect. You are perfect. All this anger, jealousy, pride, all this negative, they're temporary. And they're not even your nature. You collect it, and they're just cause and condition. See? So based on that, we use the word good. So you have to really pay some attention to this. It's difficult though, because we are talking about changing the whole generation. This is why I think like having a proper children's, Buddhist children's school, where we are taught, what do we mean actually by good? I don't know, most of you are Chinese, so I don't know so much about Chinese culture, but even between Confucius and Taoist, what they mean by good, by Confucius and Taoist, I have a feeling there's some difference. And this is just my very, very limited reading. Someone like Mr. Zhuangzi, his definition of good, I wish Chinese endorse to that definition of good more. Because I know this is important, because when, depending on what kind of definition you are adopting, like good, okay, you do the good thing. Then also the idea of reward, you will get rewarded. Or punishment. See? So the Singaporeans may be loosely saying, we Buddhists, we must do good karma so that we will be rewarded. So you may be accidentally or unconsciously talking Christianity. You understand? You may be unconscious of this. You may be just using all the Buddhist terms and all of that, just giving you an food for thoughts. Word same. I mean, we are talking about the compassion. Here is same. Compassion, Mahakaruna. Wow, the Sanskrit word. That's very rich. I thought the Tibetan translation is quite good. Tuk je che po. Tuk je chenpo. Tuk is an honorary language for mind. Like cognition. It's an honorary honorific language. It's a honorific. It's a polite. It's a respectful language, and that the fact that they choose more like a honorific language is interesting, because many times Buddhist terms are very raw. Anyway, Tuk, mind, Je is like a reverend or a higher. So Tukje, supreme mind. Chenpo means great, Maha, grand, limitless. Okay, but that's just the term. But how about the compassion? Okay, so-called the compassion. You see, I'm so used to use the word compassion. So I will, and I'm sure you are used to hearing it as a compassion, The Chinese word for compassion, but Beijing. What does it mean? Yes, you wish others not. That's that would be good. That would be good if you can keep this in mind. Okay, we need to talk a little bit about compassion. So, in these texts, in the Shastras, they talk about 3 different kinds of compassion again. One, the compassion is compassion focusing to what we call sentient being. Basically, feeling, some sort of empathy. Like, oh, the poor man, poor woman, one, looking at somebody who's suffering. The word suffering, not good. I think we will never end, again, okay, we have to talk about the suffering, sorry. Since we are going to talk about compassion, right? Why do we talk about compassion? We are looking at somebody who is suffering. Oh, poor man, poor woman. But Buddhist word dukkha, suffering. Just very briefly, in the Mahayana, they talk about 3. One is painful feeling. That probably is the mutual thing that Buddhists talk, and also the people, painful feeling. Any kind of painful feeling is a number 1. The first one, suffering. The second one, interesting. You should really make note of this. Any kind of happiness. Have you ever thought about that? See, this is what I mean. The definitions are so important. Any kinds of happiness. Why? Because they don't last. They are changing. They change. And you see, the thing is this: they have to change. Otherwise, it's not. For instance, why do we like the smell of coffee? Because when I smell, it lasts only one moment. Just imagine it lasts for 1 year. I'll be sick with this. You understand? It lasts for one moment. And for people like you and me, deluded being, this is so great. You understand? But the sublime beings like the Maitreya, they find it so funny. They look at it, this change, this drifting, temporary. Remember the sakura, cherry blossom, temporary. But, okay, we are not a creature who actually fundamentally likes temporary things. We like to be permanent. May you live long. Insurance companies. I don't know, everything about us is to make it solid, powerful, unmoving, unchanging. From the ancient time of China, with all these bald men with the longest beard, with a peach, right? With a peach. And to present day birthday throwing birthday parties and all of that. So, okay, anyway, happiness. Second, suffering. Wow, the third one is difficult. Basically, all paradoxy, all the duality. As long as it is a duality, bad, good, it's a suffering. Because Buddhists think when there is a duality, there is a violence, there is a reference. So you see, the idea of suffering in Buddha, in the Mahayana, it's quite different. So based on that, now we are talking about compassion. I've already talked about the first one, focusing on the sentient being, poor sentient being, poor beings who are suffering. The second one is more, second and the third is exclusive Buddhism, I would say. Second, compassion is what we call it focusing on phenomena, which means compassion triggered by the fact that everything is changing all the time, based on the three suffering, actually. So everything that is a subject to time is worthy. Everything that is subject to time is object of compassion. So, okay, like you guys, if you see somebody who has nothing to eat, lost their family, you guys all agree with me, object of compassion, right? Now, if you look at someone like Bill Gates, who has everything, million, this, that, house, that, no, not object of compassion, isn't it? But on the second level, yeah, he's very much object of compassion because, he's a subject of time. The third compassion is exclusive Mahayana. Everything that is a dualistic, even if you think in terms of samsara and the nirvana, that kind of duality is already an object of compassion. So, now go back to the refuge. With these three kinds of compassion, and especially the third compassion, with that compassion, you trigger the motivation and then take refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. Too much information. I'm sorry, but this book is very thick. What to do? Not much choice. We have to. Okay, again, continuing with the refuge. Remember, our old habit of taking refuge is usually, okay, surrendering. To surrender means someone you give your, I don't know, you give your leash or control towards somebody who has to be better than you, right? More powerful, more able anyway. Who would surrender to someone who is lesser or more weaker? So obviously someone who is more sublime, someone who is more powerful, right? So that's the automatic way of thinking. Take refuge to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, more powerful, more sublime, more transcendent. That's okay. That's acceptable. But according to Mahayana Sutras, that's not complete. So gachami, the word I go to. In the Mahayana, I go to where? What are we talking about? What's the destination? I go to, gachami, I take refuge. I go to my my origin of me. I think this is the most simple way to put it. And what is that? What is your origin? I mean, what is your base? Obviously, in the Mahayana, Buddha nature. So you see, so the whole attitude is actually, instead of like I go refuge, I take refuge to sublime being, higher being, it's actually, I actually take refuge to myself, my fundamental nature, which is the Buddha. And that's actually the fundamental concept of the refuge of the Buddha. I mean, Buddha Dharma. Now, for the Mahayana Buddhism, of course, not the attitude is not only like I take refuge to my fundamental Buddha nature. It's not just that. I take refuge to the fundamental nature of the Buddha of all sentient beings. This is so important. This is also what makes the Bodhisattvas tireless and fearless. And I always use this example, I will use it again. If you are a gold merchant, if you are a goldsmith, gold merchant, and someone give you a kilo of ore, kilo of raw gold, okay, ore, as a experienced gold merchant, you are as happy as someone give you a kilo of gold, polished gold, refined gold. If you are not a gold merchant, and if somebody give you a kilo of ore, you'll be upset. You think that already I have so much luggage and I have to pay excess. Now there's these stones, dusty, rough, rugged stones. Why should I have this? This is the This is how the Bodhisattvas look at the world. When they see people with greed, anger, jealousy, pride, all of this, for them, wow, they are like famished, right? Like the experienced merchant, gold merchant. Here, like it's like this is it. This is the Buddhas. This is like so important. Talking about the Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva's attitude. It's like, now I can work. Especially, those creative goldsmiths, they will be not happy if you have already given them some really good, crafted gold earring. They want to work on it. They want to make it beautiful. They want to make it amazing. So this is why we hear in the sutras and the shastras that bodhisattvas, when they look at the sentient beings with the emotions, with the downfall, their compassion actually increases, or their attitude, their wisdom increase. The reason is what we have been talking. Okay. Refuge have this connotation, this sense of vow. It's like a pledge. We do that in the ceremony, by the way. I think tomorrow is a very special day. So I also, during the special days, I take Bodhisattva vow and the refuge vow. Very short, we will do this together, okay? So just want to tell you this in the morning, in the first session. But no time for cutting hair and all of that. And also, yes, this is the thing that you always, many people make mistakes. They also, I took refuge to so-and-so monk or so-and-so abbot and so-and-so Rinpoches. It's not really like that. It's like if somebody matchmake you, like husband and wife, you are not really marrying this matchmaker, right? You understand? So, but again, in the tantric Buddhism, which those guys talk about, we are not talking about that. They, for them, the guru is everything, like Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, everything. So, but we are not talking about this. But just to give you some brief idea, Tantra is actually quite good talking third and the fourth. Form is not other than the emptiness. Emptiness is not other than the form. Tantric people are quite good at talking about these things. Just to give you some appetizer, that's it. There's too much information. Yeah, vow. So there's this sense of taking vow. And as also I've said, there is a ritual of taking vow. I take refuge, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Like I take refuge to the Buddha. I take, that vow is a path language. Path. You really need to know this. What do I mean by that? Path language. What I mean is anything that happens during the path is not a result. Obviously, it happens only during the path. It is a discipline. It is the vow is, it's really a form of discipline. And again, the discipline is in Buddhism, discipline is so blissful. It is really, a discipline has to go according to each and every individual's needs and capacity. I really don't, I don't like when people think, oh, as a Buddhist, you can't do this, you can't do that, there's some sort of a set of it that everybody has to follow this. Not really true. Not true. Look, our second row here, they have taken the discipline of shaving their head. That's their choice. My grandfather have taken a discipline of never ever losing even a lock of hair. Because he has taken a vow that each hair is like this and that mandala, blah, 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 all of that. So just as these guys meticulously shave their hair, my grandfather meticulously saved his hair. And both are accepted. This is what makes Buddhist discipline so beautiful. It's not like everybody has to do this way. Everybody has to keep hair or lose hair. There's no such things. Discipline. Having said all of this, there are some fundamental view that you have no, it doesn't, I will explain to you. For instance, so now that you have taken refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, taking refuge to Dharma, what it means fundamentally is that you are taking refuge to non-duality. Non-duality, okay? Now, after taking refuge to non-duality, that fact of the non-duality, if you still want to go to heaven and avoid hell, and then therefore you want to be a Christian or a Muslim, or doesn't work. It doesn't work. So this is why in the refuge ceremony there are vows like, okay, once you have taken refuge, you can't really join a group that believes in duality. It's got nothing to do with looking down at another path, by the way. It's just, okay, you want to go to right? Then go to right. Don't think about the left. We are not saying the left is bad, but you want to go to the right, then. Because if you don't accept that everything is non-dual, why even take a refuge to Buddha Dharma? I mean, if you are not accepting it, then you are not taking refuge. It's a contradictory. And in the Mahayana, if you do not accept that you are all, that your fundamental nature is gold, that you are Buddha, if you don't accept that, better not follow this path. Better follow a path that really sort of looks down at yourself, be hard on yourself, beat yourself up, and wait for somebody to save you. It's just simply that. I'm skipping a lot. Have to. There's too much information. Okay. Taking refuge to Buddha in the Mahayana Buddhism, ultimately it is really you accepting, no matter how defiled you are, your nature is the Buddha. Okay? And taking refuge to the Dharma is quite vast, but to take refuge to the fact that all phenomena are non-dual. No paradoxy I was saying? This is a little more difficult, but I think it will take some time to really get used to this concept, I guess. But there are few other things that you may be easier to comprehend, such as all compounded things are impermanent. All compounded things are. Everything that is put together, bound to fall apart. Accepting that, going to that. That is the truth. That's not going to deceive me. You know, what I'm saying is to think that, I'm going to die one of these days. Time to time, think about this. I'm going to die one of these days. Sooner or later, I'm going to die. This phenomena that you will die is never ever going to deceive you. This has never cheated anyone so far. It's for sure, certain. You understand? So you see, remember I was saying, you take a refuge to someone who is higher and trustable. Death will come. You have to trust me, that one. That's trustable. You understand? So stuff like this, all compounded things are impermanent. All compounded things are impermanent before the Buddha, after the Buddha, during the Buddha. All compounded things are impermanent in Bodh Gaya, in Singapore, in Orchard Road, in Hong Kong, wherever. Then the next one, all emotions, anything that with a duality is painful. Maybe a little more difficult to understand, but with a little bit of hearing and contemplation, probably you can accept that. And the third is, all phenomena has no truly existing nature, or the paradoxy that we talked about this morning. Yeah, that's basically that. Okay. Till what time? What's the end? This is an interesting one. Whatever we do, we have a purpose. If we have the fear of becoming fat, you take the path of what is it? Dieting, I guess. But this path is faulty. That's what Buddhists think. Why? Because this path will never give you an ultimate result. It's not going to be like, okay, 12 years you diet and then you will reach to the permanent slim state. And just think about that. And then, my goodness, like you have to miss all those last nasi limak, laksas, ice creams, just to be slim. You see, when you are about 12 years old, you don't think about these things. When you are about 70, you begin to regret missing all those nasi limak. So only like 20, 30, 40, I think like 30 years of some sort of an illusory appearance, you are investing on all that, discipline. But anyway, that's how we human beings are. We are kind of happy with this kind of thing. I'm not complaining. I'm actually doing myself. Not so much for the look right now, but what is it? 16-hour intermediate. Yeah. I'm doing that, by the way. For me, I'm doing this for one reason. I mean, many other reasons, but one really good reason. There's so much time in the morning because I'm not eating breakfast. I can do so many. This suddenly realize the breakfast has taken so much of my time in my life. I think it's quite good, actually. Actually, the Buddhist monks, nuns, the Buddha prescribed missing the dinner after the lunch. It's amazing. It was such a far-sighted, like discipline. How did he think about that? Anyway, how did we reach to this level of? Oh yeah, the result. The result should, you should reach, if you have to always maintain. Maybe that was not a good example. Like building a house. It's not like, okay, you build a house and then you forever enjoy. It doesn't work like that because plumbing leaks and things falls apart. So it just never ends. So you always have to maintain. You understand? So our object of refuge, do we have to maintain? Like you understand? This is the idea. What's our aim? The awakened state is our aim. That does not. Once you realize this completely, and once you uproot the emotions that is sort of feeding this delusion, no need maintenance. This basically that's what we are talking about. No need maintenance. For now, yes. Like this morning, we talk about how death is guaranteed. You and I, we will die. But right after this, I'm sure when you go to lunch, when you see, I don't know, a bag, you probably already own 6 bags, like me, but you will still buy it, thinking that you will use it next year. Because our understanding of the view is weak, our ability to being able to go to refuge to that truth is weak. So of course maintenance is necessary, maintaining that view for you and me. But once the root of the delusion is uprooted, it doesn't come back. Now this gets covered in the later chapters a lot, so I'm not going to explain this too much, which is actually really, really important, because okay, just briefly I will tell you. During in the path, we always talk about challenge and the solution. You have the challenges and then the solution. In the Mahayana, especially the Maitreya, he really talks a lot. Not in this text a lot, but in the Uttara Tantra a lot. He says that you already have the solution. You don't need to get the solution from elsewhere. Your nature, your Buddha nature is the real solution. You already have it. The problem that you have are all temporary. And the nature, Buddha nature that you have is not temporary. This is why defeating all the problem and never to needing to maintain the Buddha nature is possible. Okay, so that's just a very brief introduction to his logic, which probably will come in the next gathering, not this time. Okay, I think we take a lunch.